Um, so hi everyone, my name is Deanna DeVudiazel. I'm 27 years old. I live in Rockville Center. I am on the steering committee of Young Long Island for Justice, which I'll talk about in a second. I also run Indivisible Nassau County. So, basically, I just want to give you a sense of who we are. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. So Young Long Island for Justice is a youth-led collective of organizations, community leaders, and residents focused on increasing public awareness and direct action to further anti-racist policies at all levels of government. As a hub for young people on Long Island, YLIJ strategizes, recruits, and mobilizes in order to transform institutions that further systemic racism. So one of the things, just to give you a little sense of how we got started, we used to be called Young Progressives of Nassau County, and we organized like Families Belong Together, protests and whatnot, things to keep bail reform in place. And then the murder of George Floyd happened, and we organized the first major protest on Long Island. It was June 1st in front of the Nassau County Executive Building. We had an estimated 3,000 people show up. It was truly phenomenal, and we had 40 co-sponsoring organizations, including Long Island's chapter of the Poor People's Campaign. So just to give you a sense of sorry, I hear someone's, yeah, just to give you a sense of what's going on. So Cuomo issued an executive order. Let me go back. Cuomo issued an executive order saying that, here it is, saying that police departments had to reinvent and modernize strategies, and that this must take place by April 1st, 2021 in order to be eligible for future state funding. So Nassau and Suffolk are taking different approaches. And as Susan said, police departments are regulated at a local level. So within Nassau County, we have the Nassau County Police Department. I think a lot of incorporated villages, like the village of Freeport, the village of Hempstead, the village of Rockville Center, have their own police forces, and then the cities of Long Beach and Glen Cove have their own police forces. So what is Nassau County doing in response to Cuomo's executive order demanding that police forces reinvent and modernize their strategies? Well, where's the pact? Okay, this is the pact. So basically, Nassau County Executive Laura Curran created the Police and Community Trust initiative, and this is her press release. And this, as you can see in terms of who's on the pact, is very heavy in terms of police. And so us activists have seen this as not the real forum through which a transformative vision of reimagining public safety in Nassau County will occur. How can the police reimagine their own function, right? So we are not exactly sure. I mean, it says here that the aims are to build trust, transparency, and a working dialogue. However, what we want is a reimagining of what community safety means, what sort of calls do the police actually respond to, and is that aligned with their training? So we responded to this, and we got some press coverage on this, basically being like, we need to have young people there. We need to have activists like Helen Boxwell, who've been around on this issue, at the table. So that's our opinion on that. Now, in terms of Nassau County and what we're calling budget justice. So as we know, budgets are moral documents. They reflect society's priorities in terms of what we invest in and what we don't invest in. And right now, it's very clear that we are overly invested in an overly militarized police force in Nassau County. Nassau County actually has the 13th, if you wouldn't believe it, but we have the 13th largest police force in the entire United States. As you can see here, the budget proposed in September, that was September 2019, because the budget season is the county executive proposes a budget every September, and then the legislature passes it by October 30th. That budget that was set aside for police was $819 million. And I believe that is perhaps just counting payroll. It says the county is spending $51 million on a new police headquarters, $450,000 on tasers, $10 million on new police vehicles. However, when you compare that with what else the county spends money on, it only spends $400,000 on the Commission on Human Rights, and it spends a fraction of that on housing programs. And as we know, you want to see safe, stabilized communities, then show me communities that are properly housed, educated, have health care, and all of those wraparound services. So to give you a sense of what we're dealing with here, this is the 2020 budget for the Nassau County Police, $893.7 million, right? So when we say, and this is actually a affordability issue, and Tyler, I see you taking pictures, but we actually have this on our website, so I will tell you where. I'll go to the website next. When we say that Long Island is unaffordable, we need to start talking about why it's unaffordable. And a large reason is because we spend an exorbitant amount on our police forces. And as Susan said earlier, because we have so many overlapping layers of government and various police forces at different municipal levels, we have a lot of overhead costs with respect to police forces, which is what makes our property taxes so high as well. So this, as you can see in the bottom, is on our website at younglongislandforjustice.com/reinvest. And I'm actually going to go to that right now. So all those slides, that was just the first slide. There's a few things. So can everyone see this, my screen? Everyone can see this? Okay, so.
No.
Okay.
No, we can't.
Now can you see it?
No.
All right, hold on. Okay, how about now? Can we see this? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a slideshow that one of my members in Young Long Island for Justice put together. I'm going to run through it very high level just to give you a sense. So this is what we mean when we say defund the police. And forces on the right and forces that are truly trying to just distract from the narrative and the issue at hand, which is that we have been, I would say, misallocating society's tax dollars to a police force that is over-militarized instead of really investing in the preventative measures that stabilize communities. That is what defund the police means. It means take the money that has been given to the police force and not totally abolish the police, but reallocate some of that money to other forces that we know, other departments that we know are more effective in stabilizing our communities. So let's go through the slides. This was what you saw here, the 2020 budget. The other thing that we're not even counting when we talk about the police force is the corrections center. So the two top departments that take the most money in Nassau County in terms of our budget is the police and the corrections department. So, right. And if you have any questions, just drop in the chat and I'll try to answer it afterwards. So we spend, $600 something per resident. That's higher than every single state average except the District of Columbia. And despite being home to the 13th largest police force in the nation, we rank only 22nd for decrease in per capita crime, between 2014 and 2018. So I would encourage you to go to younglongislandforjustice.com/reinvest and look through these slides yourself. So, and we live truly in Long Island is really like the capital of New York, if not America. 26% of the New York City Police Department's force lives in Long Island. And in addition to that, we have a lot of cops in both Nassau and Suffolk. So when something happened, if like last year, where like someone was like disrespecting a police officer, and then the Nassau County legislators passed an obscure law that said that someone can go to prison for up to a year for spraying a police officer with water. So there's a lot of stuff going on in terms of the politics of this. And a large reason why is because of the money. So we did research, and right here you have every single county legislator in Nassau County, and you have the thousands of dollars that they have taken from police unions. So yeah, definitely look at that. And we would also encourage you to go and call your legislators and ask them to decrease the police funding. And we're going to have a more targeted strategy over the summer, because as we said, the budget is coming out. The proposed budget, County Executive Curran's proposed budget is coming out in September. So we're really using this summer to brainstorm as to what that number is going to be that we are asking for the police budget to be decreased by, and what other departments are we asking it to be reallocated for. And if anything, this is a really great year to start to be inventive with our budgets, as we know we're going to have a huge decrease in tax revenue because of COVID and whatnot. So, okay, that's all I wanted to do with this slide. So let me go back to my slide. So Ben and Jerry's is very, very, very socially justice oriented recently, and they have a really great, I'm going to go back. They have a really great graphic about what does defund mean. So if you think about the police budget as a bowl of ice cream, right? Right now, it's all the ice cream is in this one bowl. However, if we scoop out some of that ice cream and we put it into housing and job training and education and mental health counseling and substance abuse treatment, we can have a more holistic, I would say, comprehensive plan about how to make our communities safer. So, in addition to the county legislators not taking COP money, we also started a petition demanding that the Long Island Six, and for those who aren't familiar with that term, that refers to the 6 state senators on Long Island that are Democrats, that they return the COP money that they got, and that they also, and that they also take the money, rather not return it, donate it to Black-led organizations for justice, and also that they refuse to take COP union money in the future. So as you can see here in our poster, Todd Kaminsky received since 2016, so this is all like their first campaign for state senator, Todd Kaminsky received over $100,000. John Brooks received $30-something thousand, as did Senator Monica Martinez, Jim Gorin, $26,000, Anna Kaplan, $14,000, and Senator Thomas, $8,000. So we had a press conference in front of Todd Kaminsky's office on June 18th, and we actually had over 40 groups sign on to our petition, which was amazing. And you can watch the live stream of that press conference on our Young Long Island for Justice Facebook page. You can feel free to go there. We got a lot of great press about it. And I think that's really great, because even if things aren't successful in the short term, like we don't expect state senators the next day to return COP money or donate it or refuse. However, you have to start somewhere. And I think that this was really a great show of solidarity of grassroots groups across Long Island to this issue. So we have a toolkit that you can make calls and sign petitions. You can go to younglongislandforjustice.com/action. And actually, I want to go to that right now as well. So let me exit here. Can everyone see this action hub? Thumbs up. Can you see it? Yes.
See it, but the print is very small, so can't necessarily read it.
It's okay. I'll zoom in. Okay. So basically, this is younglongislandforjustice.com/action, and this is our action hub with respect to our no COP money petition. It lays out all the statistics. This is the letter, and it has all the groups that sign on. As you can see, this is a big show of force, and it has the steps. The first step is please sign our individual petition asking the state senators to not take cop money. You can just sign it here through Action Network. And then also we ask that you make calls and you email your state senator. We lay out all the numbers there. We also have a script if you make calls. And then you also have an email script here. And if you're unsure, says who your state senator is, and this is the email, the writing script. So that's that. I'd like to go back to my presentation. So we went over this already in the younglongislandforjustice.com/reinvest. This breaks down every legislator in terms of the cop money they've taken. So what would a re-envisioning of public safety be? What would we call that? So what we're calling that is our justice and opportunity agenda. So our justice and opportunity agenda, this lays out at every level of government what we want money to be reallocated to and what demands do we want that fit into a larger anti-racist social justice list of demands that's appropriate for the time we're in. So I know that this isn't about cops, these next two slides, but I just wanted to give you a sense of how the cop stuff fits into a larger re-envisioning of transforming institutions on Long Island to be more racially oriented towards racial justice. So with respect to Board of Education, we, like in Long Island, has a really bad problem with Black teachers, over punishing students. We are creating a coalition in Long Island Black Alliance has a coalition of our grassroots groups, and they're bringing us together. And one of their demands is they want cops out of schools. Right now, cops are in schools, a few school districts in Nassau County, and that only contributes to the school to prison pipeline. With respect to city council, we also want to reform police departments at a local municipal level. The Freeport Police, I don't know if everyone has heard of Akbar Rogers. Could you just raise your hand if you've heard of Akbar Rogers? Okay, so I need everybody after this meeting to immediately Google Akbar Rogers. I'm going to drop in the chat the man's name. Hold on a second. Akbar Rogers. He's a man in Freeport, and it's on video, and this was in December 2019, so a few months ago. He was brutalized by the Freeport Police Department. He was kicked, he was punched, he was tased, and he said, "I can't breathe." And it is by the grace of God, or whatever you believe in, that he is here alive, still with us, to say his story, and that he's not just another hashtag. But please watch the video. Akbar Rogers, he's there. He's taken on by 6 or 7 police cops, 2 of which we are learning are related to the mayor of Freeport. And so it is very, very suspicious about this investigation because the mayor of Freeport is investigating an act of impropriety that we are now learning involved his son or his cousin or something like that. To add insult to injury, this case right now, Akbar Rogers is being charged by Nassau County District Attorney Madeline Singas, claiming that he hurt the back of one of the police officers. So we also, when we elect the next district attorney, have to demand that they too do not take cop union money and that are going to take a more affirmative stance towards police accountability. So we're working with Long Island Progressive Coalition, and they have a whole toolkit, but please, if you could call Madeline Singas' office and ask her to drop the charges against Akbar Rogers. The man was brutalized, and now he's being charged with hurting police officers' backs or something. But please watch the video. It's really, really, really traumatic, but I think it's necessary for us to viscerally feel the brutalization that minority communities in Long Island experience at the hands of police. Next, Nassau County. Can everyone see the Nassau County slide?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I have like 10, I have the chat open and this and that. All right, so next is, we, again, want to increase the amount of Black employees that are in Nassau County, the various departments that they have. We want to reform the police department and also the county jail system. As we saw earlier, the two biggest expenditures in the county budget overwhelmingly are the police department and also the corrections department, which incorporates the county jail system. With respect to legislation, now, I don't know if everyone, I know I was asked to just speak on the Nassau County lens, but is everybody familiar with all the legislation that was passed a few weeks ago in Albany at the state level? If you are, raise your hand. Okay, so I think this would be a good time, Susan, if you don't mind me sort of covering that, because I think that's very, very important in terms of police accountability. So, George Floyd was murdered on Monday, May 25th. There was all these protests that week, really mainly in the city. And then that next week, we were one of the first protests on June 1st. Massive amounts of protests on Long Island that whole week. Because of that, and because of the protests across New York State, the New York State legislature convened a special legislative session. Because New York State legislature is they only are in legislative session from January until June. They actually passed the budget on April 1st or whatnot, and they left. They were like, that's it. We're not legislating anymore. They focused more on constituent services, which in the middle of the COVID pandemic made sense. However, there are a lot of things we need them to legislate on. So they came back, and there was a package of bills that was proposed by the New York State legislative Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, and Asian caucus. This caucus contains all of the people of color that are legislators in New York State, in the State Senate and the Assembly. We have that on our website as well. It's younglongislandforjustice.com/legislation. So I'm going to go there now quickly. And we have all the bills that were proposed by the Black, Puerto Rican, Asian, and Hispanic caucus. And we created a legislative tracker because that week, I think it was the week of, June 12th or whatnot, they went back into session and they passed truly historic bills with respect to police accountability at a statewide level that we thought in the activist community would never get passed, just based on the political climate. I don't know if everyone remembers, but 4 short months ago, we were fighting against a racist attack to reinstate the cash bail system in New York State. So just think about that. Before COVID, we were literally begging for the New York State legislature to not roll back the reforms on cash bail that we knew was a racist system. And now look at how far we've come. So let me see what you can see. So this is here. It has all the legislation here in New York State that was proposed. And then what actually got passed, just click on state or federal. Here is the state legislative tracker. It contains both. So I'll get to the federal stuff that passed in a second, but I just wanted to bring your attention to the state stuff that got passed. Sorry, my computer's slow. So can everyone see this? Okay. So we laid out every single law that was proposed by the Black Legislative Caucus. And we have here, so Long Island has 22 assembly districts that represent it and 9 state Senate districts. We laid out here every single bill that was proposed and voted on. And we have how all of our Long Island state legislators voted. Green means they voted yes. Red means they voted no. Gray means they abstained. So 50A, who knows what the repeal of 50A did? So 50A was something that was put into place in the 1970s, and it really made, it was used to shield police misconduct and to make misconduct and discipline records inadmissible in court. That was repealed. People that have been working in Albany for years said they never thought that would have been repealed. That was repealed. There was also the next bill is a special prosecutor. So this actually applies to every police department in New York State. So even though police departments are funded locally, some state laws have jurisdiction over police departments. And we also made that distinction here. In blue means that the legislation applies to every police department in New York State. Orange means it just applies to the New York State Police Department, which are like the New York State Troopers, which we don't really see quite often day to day. So that was 50A. Next is, finally, there's going to be a special prosecutor that's going to investigate police brutality. Oftentimes, police misconduct is investigated internally by the police department. So there's like a conflict of interest there and politics that get in the way of like a true independent investigation. Right to monitor means that it gives us as citizens the right to record police officers as they do, as long as we're not in custody. Ensuring that police officers and other law enforcement have the duty to provide medical assistance to those in custody. The next is a big one. It establishes the crime of strangulation. It is also known as the Eric Garner Chokehold Act. So, sorry, someone's maybe not muted. I don't know. As everyone knows, Eric Garner was murdered in July of 2014 by a chokehold maneuver done on him in Staten Island by an NYPD officer. That was 6 years ago. Why are chokeholds just being banned now? So this goes to show you why it's so important that everyone came to this meeting today and why we continue to organize and mobilize, because change is going to take not just a moment, but a movement. And actually, funny enough, after this got passed around the week of June 12th, the next week in Far Rockaway in Queens, an NYPD officer put someone in a chokehold and they were charged under the new statute. And that police officer actually was from Long Beach. As I said, 26% of the NYPD, New York City Police Department, the officers live in Long Island. So this is like the third rail to touch. It's a very difficult issue, but I think we've seen the political demands and political climate is shifting in favor of accountability. Next is some stuff about body cams for New York State troopers and MTA police officers. This was an interesting one. It finally required law enforcement who discharge their weapon, means like shoot their weapon, to report that they shot their weapon if it's in any case that someone could have been struck by the bullet. So we were not keeping track of police officers when they discharged their weapons. I mean, the stat bill, this was a huge one. So now police departments across New York State are required to release the statistics of the total number of misdemeanors and arrests by race, ethnicity, gender of those charged, and the statistics of those killed by police or while in custody. So that's another thing that we can only fix what we measure. So we will finally have statistics around police killings and misconduct. Oh, this is a great one. So does everyone remember back in May, and this was before Eric Garner's passing, before George Floyd's passing. Did everyone remember that woman in Central Park that fictitiously called 911 on that Black man who was bird watching, claiming that he was attacking her? So finally, we now have a law against that. So if you make a 911 call and you misreport something and you call the police on people for a frivolous reason, that is now against the law. And actually that woman...
Deanna, she was charged. I read today that she was charged.
Exactly. That woman was charged with a misdemeanor under this new law. For people who may not understand the importance of Long Island and what we do, the New York State Senate has 63 state senators in it, 40 of which are Democrats. In 2018, we finally flipped the New York State Senate blue for the first time effectively in 50 years. So even though New York was a blue state, we did not have a state legislature that was blue. As such, we could not really pass a lot of laws. In 2018, we flipped 3 seats on Long Island blue, in addition to holding Todd Kaminsky's seat and John Brooks's seat. So the Long Island 6, the 6 of those, the 6 Democratic state senators on Long Island, represent a huge swing vote in the majority of the New York State Senate. So if anyone feels bad that they don't live in a swing state, you don't live in Florida or Ohio or Pennsylvania, you feel like you don't have a lot of attention given to you in the presidential race, well, let me tell you something. You live in the Florida of New York. You live in the Pennsylvania and Ohio of New York. Long Island is the swing region of New York. What we do, what everyone in this Zoom room does, in terms of to pressure our state senators and our state assembly members, reverberates across New York State. There are people in the city who are depending on us to get them their justice because the numbers are in our favor in terms of we have more influence because we have the swing votes on Long Island. So I just wanted to give a sense and imbue everyone with a sense of urgency, responsibility, and importance as to the work we're doing. And there's some other stuff that I won't necessarily go into, and there's some other stuff that didn't pass. The ban on racial profiling didn't pass. So there's a lot of more work to do. Okay, so that's the state level. Now, really quickly, I want to just talk about the federal level and what's going on at the federal level. So this is also on our tracker. It's in the next tab, if everyone can see me pull that up. Okay, so there is something called that the United States Congress, specifically the House of Representatives, as we know, House of Representatives right now is under Democratic control. United States Senate is under Republican control, under Mitch McConnell. So under Speaker Pelosi's work in the House of Representatives, the Democrats introduced and passed the Justice in Policing Act, which was then renamed the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. And what it did, and it truly is really transformative work. What it did was, or what it will do if it ever passes the United States Senate, which under Mitch McConnell, it will never, ever happen, which also I want to illustrate, it's so important that we flip the United States Senate this fall. I'm just going to go off script really quickly. There are a few key swing states. Susan Collins can be beaten in Maine. She's very vulnerable after her Kavanaugh vote. Cory Gardner can be beaten in Colorado. He is very vulnerable, and that Colorado is rapidly becoming a blue state. We have Martha McSally, who's a Republican in Arizona. She's a first-term senator that was only put in after the passing of Senator McCain. She can be beaten. So there's a lot of really crucial key swing states. I would encourage everyone to look them up and donate to them. $5, $10. Because just as so much progressive legislation was blocked at the state level because we had a blue assembly but a red Senate, so much amazing progressive legislation is being blocked at the federal level because we only have a blue House of Representatives and a red United States Senate. So back to this. What they passed it. What did the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act demand? It demands a nationwide end of racial and religious profiling. It demands a nationwide ban on chokeholds, limits the use of deadly force, finally creates a national police misconduct registry. So let's say I'm a police officer. I live in Ohio. I have a huge police misconduct record. I then leave my department. I go to New Mexico. That information of my history will now be available to future employers. And we know that it's so crucial to have transparency in police misconduct because the officer who killed George Floyd, he had 18 something complaints, previous complaints against him of police misconduct and police brutality. If any one of those 18 were either taken seriously were properly investigated, were properly attended to, George Floyd might be here today. And George Floyd is but emblematic of the thousands of people that have lost, primarily Black and brown people, that have lost their lives to police brutality by officers that we know have a history of misconduct. The other thing that the Justice and Policing Act does, it finally makes lynching a federal crime. Lynching is still not a federal crime. I do not believe they passed in the United States Senate. Rand Paul from Kentucky is blocking it or something. The other thing that this Justice and Policing Act does is it bans no-knock warrants. What a no-knock warrant means that usually in order to arrest someone or search their home, you have to have a warrant, right? There's due process that is issued by a judge, and you have to identify yourself, right? You knock on someone's door, I have a warrant to search your home or a warrant for your arrest. Some places still have no-knock warrants. This is what killed Breonna Taylor. They had a warrant for someone's arrest. They went to the wrong home. And they were in plain clothes, and they busted into her apartment. And this was a young Black woman who was an EMT who was trying to rest after a crazy COVID pandemic. She was on the front lines. Can you imagine if you were sitting in your home and her boyfriend was next to her, and plainclothes people bust into your door? Her boyfriend pulled out his gun for self-protection, and the police officers sprayed them with dozens of bullets and killed Breonna Taylor, murdered Breonna Taylor. So that's another thing. If you Google Justice for Breonna Taylor, sign petitions, and please call the mayor of Louisville, because the officers that killed Breonna Taylor are still not charged. We got the officers that killed George Floyd charged after the governor of Minnesota placed it under special investigation with the Attorney General of Minnesota. However, we still do not have justice for Breonna Taylor. Her murderers are walking free. So, the other thing is it funds body cams for officers. Now, in terms of the Long Island congressional delegation, we have 5 people in the House of Representatives that represent us. In District 1, we have Republican Lee Zeldin, who we must beat this fall. In District 2, we have Peter King, who finally is stepping down after, sorry, I don't know what that sound is. Forgive me. We have Peter King is finally stepping down. Wait, let me go back to my share screen. Can everyone see the legislative tracker again? Yes? Okay. So, Peter King is stepping down. It's an open seat. We, on the Democratic side, who's going to win, it hasn't been certified yet because of all the absentee ballots they have to count, but Jackie Gordon is going to win. She's a formal Babylon Town Council woman. We must do everything we can to get Jackie Gordon elected. It's an open seat in a presidential year. Peter King was extremely racist. He was the architect behind the Muslim ban. He led the Committee on Homeland Security post 9/11. It was very problematic what he did. And we can get a real Democrat to represent us. In District 3, which is Tom Suozzi, that's the North Shore, covers Suffolk, Nassau, and part of Queens, we have Tom Suozzi. We'll see how the primary goes. Looks like he's going to win. In District 4, which is totally Nassau, we have Kathleen Rice. And District 5, we have Greg Meeks. Now, Greg Meeks' district mostly covers Queens. However, they scooped up the bluest part of Nassau County, which are the majority minority communities of Elmont, Valley Stream, and they put those communities in District 5. So Greg Meeks covers a bit of Southwest Nassau. We lay out here who endorsed or co-sponsored the Justice and Policing Act and whatnot. And this is just gonna go die on Mitch McConnell's desk as everything else went. $15 minimum wage, the gun violence prevention measures. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff that we've passed with the new House representatives that we flipped that got passed in the 2019, 2020 legislative session, Congress rather, is just going to die on Mitch McConnell's desk, never see the light of day. That's why it's so important we flip the United States Senate. So with that, I believe my presentation, let me just go to my presentation quickly to see if there are any other slides. With that, I would like to take questions. If anybody has any questions, please just raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or unmute yourself. I believe you can unmute yourself, or if there are any questions in the chat.
Hi, this is Bob. I've been doing a lot of research on what's being done in other places in the country. And for anybody that really wants to see what's being done in Chicago, what they're proposing to do.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. Oh.
What?
Sorry, I just muted someone. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, what they're doing, I think it's called CPAC, is civilians that are going to hopefully serve on each precinct in Chicago will be manned by people that are civilians that will oversee the conduct of the police. They will hopefully get the opportunity to hire in fire cops. And because there was so much of that police brutality in Chicago over the years, even when Emanuel was the mayor, and that's kind of why he was forced to not run for re-election, because he had so much of this stuff on his plate.
Definitely. So with respect to that, is the other thing that the Long Island Black Alliance Coalition that we're, Young Long Island for Justice is a part of in terms of reimagining public safety. It's like, the other thing is that we have to recognize is that cops, we put too much expectation on cops. They are supposed to respond to domestic violence incidents, mental health incidents. They are supposed to respond to, a whole slew of things that, quite frankly, they are not trained for. Actually, someone on Long Island who's an activist had a mental health crisis in her family, and the cops responded, and they were like, listen, we really can't help you. We're not trained on this. And she was like, so who am I going to call? So legislation that we're trying to work on at the Nassau County level is to develop a different set of responders for those type of incidences. And actually, it was just in Newsday today. I don't know if anyone saw, but a few weeks ago, an East Northport family, their son was having a mental health crisis. They called the police. The police were allegedly told in advance that the son had a pellet gun that was unloaded or something. Police came, shot the son. He's now dead. So the family called in a moment of crisis. They needed a social worker or perhaps, something. I don't know. I'm not an expert. And instead they were met with the killing of their son. So we need to go back to specialization.
There was also a case where a mentally ill gentleman was in his shower, and he was schizophrenic and did not understand what the police were saying to him because he was having an episode. He threw water on the cop tasered him, and of course he died of electrocution. I think Susan had told me about it. I don't know where that was done, but I think it was done somewhere on Long Island.
Right. Okay, Martha, thank you so much, Bob. Okay, Martha, I see your hand raised, and then I have to hop off at 8, so I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just yesterday, I heard that there are 2 courses, one at Hunter College and one at Columbia, in their School of Social Work, where they are training, hopefully, policemen who would like to be social workers. And so they get a type of social work certificate, and they are able, and because of their size and then with knowledge and psychology, they're able to be called on in situations of mental problem, of people having mental problems and breakdowns. So this might also be one way of helping the police force to become more humane.
Right. And the other thing that I would like to say is that there's this narrative of it's just the bad apples.
Yeah.
There is a code of silence within the police force. As you saw in Buffalo, there was that peace activist. He was an elderly man, 75, walking. 2 Buffalo police officers shove him to the ground. He's bleeding. They, due to public outrage, because it was on tape, and he was white, the man was white, 75-year-old elderly white man. The police officers are then disciplined. 30 other Buffalo police officers resigned or stepped down from that specialized force in solidarity with the 2 police officers that shoved the elderly man and gave him a cracked skull. There is something inherently wrong with the system. And the way that I compare it to is this. We, as Americans, we live in a fundamentally racist society. We as individuals may not be actively racist. However, because of the structures around us and the incentive structures around us, in order for us to combat racism, it's not enough for us to just be not racist. We have to be anti-racist. We have to actively be dismantling systems of white supremacy. Same thing goes for the police force. It's not enough for police officers to just not be bad apples. Unless they are actively participating in a restructuring and reimagining of police, such that the incentive structures do not exist that allow police accountability to go on unchecked for so long, then they are complicit. Then they are complicit too. So we need to negate this notion of good apples or bad apples and say, this isn't even about apples at all. It's about the system under which all the apples are conditioned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With that, it has been a pleasure. I have to bounce to my 8:00 meeting. I will send the slides to Susan and hopefully she can disseminate them. And let me just stop sharing my screen.